Fill her up.
You're listening to the Gas Digital Network.
Yeah, I know. Because I can't get right. This is cutthroat. This burns as words hot from a snub nose. This Kurt Metzger and I give a fuck mode. Because I can't get right. Because I can't get right. Yeah. You're listening to Can't Get Right.
Hey, this is Can't Get Right with me, Kurt Metzger, and my guest today is director Uwe Boll, who you may remember from a lot of movies. I think years ago I wrote to you on Facebook because I saw Rampage, where I was like, "Oh, this is pretty good." And I used to write for the Video Game Awards back in like 2007. So at that time, Uwe Boll was like the notorious for like making video game movies and having like Ain't It Cool News, I guess. Remember Ain't It Cool News? And then you boxed one of the guys, which by the way, I never understood. I didn't understand why that guy agreed to that and how it like settled, but I know you beat his ass. But how, like, just for people that don't know, like, you made House of the Dead, right? Postal.
Yeah.
What's the other video game?
Alone in the Dark.
That's right. Alone in the Dark.
Yeah, and then Blood Rain.
And Blood Rain.
Walken and Ben Kingsley and others. And then Dungeon Siege with Jason Statham. And then in the end, I did also Far Cry, the video game Far Cry, with Til Schweiger, who was in Inglourious Basterds. He's a big star in Germany, but then we had like US cast.
Stiglitz? Is he Stiglitz in Inglourious Basterds? Did that who he played? The German guy? Yeah, right. Yeah, and they all had big fucking actors. You know, House of the Dead. Who's the guy from Das Boot that?
Jürgen Prochnow?
Yeah, it was like, holy shit! How did you get like Ben King? Like, how did you get these people? How did you get them?
No, that was basically, we came very late in a way with offers, and we went to the agencies and said, look, we want to shoot in 2 months. And a lot of the stars, like Michelle Rodriguez from Fast and the Furious was in, or Billy Zane, Meatloaf was in a thing, and Stephen Dorff and so on. But sometimes you find actors, they just are not booked right now, and then they jump on something what they maybe don't do just for fun, but for the money, right? They say, okay, let's pocket the money. Maybe I don't get a job in the next month. I do it. And that's what we did, because I know with this kind of films, you're not like convincing them to do a pay cut or to do, like to say, I'm in it for the glory. So,
yeah, right.
Yeah. And I think I saw that realistic, but I think what the people don't know is when I did a movie Heart of America about a little school about the school violence, and Elizabeth Moss is in the film from Handmaid's Tale and so on, and it was a very good movie, but it made no money.
Yeah.
And that was the reason I did House of the Dead after, because I was very also frustrated. I was not a typical filmmaker. I'm not a Michael Bay. I'm not a guy who's totally like a genre fan. I'm a big fan of political driven films, and I did my first films in Germany were all like was one thing about a prime minister who was found dead in a bathtub in Geneva in Switzerland. So they were all based on real stuff.
Yeah,
and then House of the Dead came along and it made money. And it was like, I had no choice, right? It was not like, everybody I know said, okay, what you doing now after House of the Dead? Let's do Alone in the Dark. We can get the game rights. And I was basically moving into the films with bigger cast, with bigger budgets, based on that the money was there. And, and the good dramas like Heart of America, you win whatever. I think I won like 1 or 2 little film festivals with it, but then you're like dead. It's like a few DVDs you sell and you get $50,000 from cable TV, but you lose a lot of money. And that was the reason I did all that video game based movies. And I think that people hated me for it first because they knew I was not the gaming geek.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I remember when, I'm 45, but I always played those games. But I remember when those movies came out, I was an adult, but I was working, like I said, for these video game awards. They were on Spike TV at the time. So that was, it's funny to think how different It is now at that, but like I didn't have. I was an adult, so I didn't like. I'm like, this guy ruined House of the Dead. Like I wouldn't have a feeling. I feel like because I'd played House of the Dead.
And how can
it wasn't a stunning story, the game.
Yeah.
And but that was the beginning of where people are into the game and they're like, oh, someone should make who likes it should make a good movie. Now it's amazing. There was like this little peak where you would get people really enthusiastic about whatever the comic book or the video game. And now it's switched where like, I imagine with all like the kind of woke shit they do now, it's like they would probably yearn for an Uwe Boll, you know, like just something like that's not where they're ruining it in like. I mean, if I think about that, I would say the fans probably didn't know how good they had it because the way they fuck this stuff now is incredible. Like it's something I would have never imagined, you know, like, what did you say?
When you see the last 10 years, what also Prince of Persia was total crap. World of Warcraft was total crap. And there was all this stuff where they acted like, you know, like, and then I mean, I get like messages, whatever. And they say, look, we loved Blood Rain because it was gory and sexy. You saw tits and blood and stuff, what you have in the video games too. And
right.
That is the thing, what I never made really like PG movies or PG-13 movies. My movies are all R-rated or NC-17 because I feel also as a genre, like I grew up with Halloween and stuff like this.
Yeah, right.
Friday the 13th and so on. So I have nothing against violence and I don't want to like pussy out. And a lot of this kind of $100 million film are basically done with this, but we have to do PG. We have to do PG.
Yeah.
And so they promise something, and then you see the film and you think, what a harmless like kids movie they made out of it.
Yeah, it's worse.
And I never did this, and maybe some people appreciating it now more as like when I actually did the films. But it's also I'm a big genre fan, and I read a good article about the Netflix drop right now. What happened with Netflix?
Yeah, right.
And there was written because now the streamers who came in the beginning as the alternative, like the harder, they're more edgier, they turned into TV channels now.
Yeah,
and
right.
They producing the same shit like the big TV channels, and it gets more harmless and harmless and harmless by the minute, and more mainstream. And I think that is the reason people quit, because they say, for what now? I mean, like you expecting a different program from them. And I see here in Germany, I'm doing some stuff here with Amazon and Netflix. And I see also the people they pick who decide if you make a production for them are the same people that work for the network.
I was just going to say that, dude, because my girlfriend works in the industry, and it was all people from NBC were going over there. So they slowly started turning it into NBC and ABC and all that other shit. And then, you know, if they're from ABC, that's like a subsidiary of Disney. There's something really gross about, especially when I think of like these MCU movies from when they first came out. Netflix had some kind of decent, you know, like Daredevil was good. I liked it. And I liked the other one, you know, with the black guy.
And
the
Punisher was very violent.
What'd you say? Luke Cage. Yeah.
The Punisher, I really liked it.
Oh yeah, I like the Punisher.
Yeah.
The Punisher that woman, she's a German director. The one made before the Netflix came out with the guy from Rome, the British guy. And you could tell she kind of was doing the same thing where she's like, well, this is what the fans like. It's the Punisher. And it looks like that. Like it was like fucking way over the top. It was pretty decent. But then that Netflix one was great. But then I watched, like, Disney bought the property. So they like kind of decoupled that from the official, because it was kind of tied into their universe. And it just gets Disneyfied. And I got a lot of friends that work for various Disney companies. It's like creepy the way they, one guy was working in sports, and he's like, they would go, yes, there's clean. It's not the word clean, but it was like, there's clean and there's Disney clean, or standards, S&P standards of practice, and there's Disney standards and practices. Like, he's like, am I in Scientology? Like, what is this? And it's because we
in the end, it's all like in Pleasantville, or in like like this kind of like artificial world.
Corporate. It's corporate.
corporate, and it boils down to be not original. And no, I look at it and I feel, scheiße. Why? No, I really hope that can do more films, and more films also for Netflix or whatsoever. But it didn't. Right now, it didn't happen, and it's disappointing because where are the voices, like the different voices, And then also with Netflix, what I didn't get is the exorbitant money they spend. For they give Obama 100 million. They give Prince Harry 100 million. For what?
Yeah, no one gives a shit.
What? It's just they want celebrities around them, and then they sitting in the party in Nobu restaurant, and then they give a celebrity an output contract, and this celebrity made a film. I made 34 movies in my life, and that is the thing. And then we getting ignored, and this kind of in people who are with the Kardashians going out getting contracts, and I don't get it. It's I don't know what. The business decision is not right, what they do. And,
it's not all business. One, it's not all business. First of all, there's a guy named Chato, Chato, who's an ex-producer from Hollywood that does videos about it. And he's very interesting because he always has a perspective. I don't even watch TV now. I watch a bunch of YouTubes. What's cool is with a very minor amount of fame. I wouldn't even call it fame, but just having been on basic cable 2 or 3 times, if I see somebody's channel I like on YouTube, a lot of times I can reach out to them and they'll talk to me. And, it's pretty cool. I'll meet people on here on YouTube and everybody's watching that shit. I think a lot of them see there's such an infrastructure. Well, that especially agents and managers, there's such a infrastructure out here of kind of consultants and middlemen that they have to keep a certain illusion going that this is where it's at to just keep that business going, So they'll just be really slow. I remember when Quibi came out, I was maybe going to have a job working for some show on Quibi, which was that Jeffrey Katzenberg fucking.
I know the Quibi.
Yeah, and I remember hearing of what it was. I'm like, so it's just the shit that I would watch now, but I just pay you for it to see celebrities I don't care about, that celebrity thing is really starting to die out. And I really didn't understand the appeal of YouTube when it first came out. I was I work for real TV, back when you could really make money on it very easily.
I think YouTube is great. And to be honest, when I see my kids and kids from friends, they don't even want to watch a 2 hours film. I think that original idea from Quibi for the new generation to watch things 10 minutes long on your cell phone is exactly what happens now. But they all watch it for free. They watch it on YouTube, Talk, Instagram, whatever. And that was the reason Quibi couldn't scale fast enough that people would put the money up, because it would be the parents who would have to sign on Quibi and pay. But the parents maybe all thought, no, I don't want that you watch more of this short stuff. And so I think that was the idea of Quibi. I think is totally working, but not with Quibi. It was and I see also when I see my kids here, they're watching stuff where we sit there and think, why the fuck you watch that? What is wrong with you? But they have a special thing what works in the age 10, what works in the age 13.
Yeah, right.
And they pick the stuff themselves. They find it also. They see things I find on YouTube, and I say, "What is this? But why you follow this guy who jumps only in the pool in every video in different ways, in different pools around the world, and then you follow him because he talks 5 minutes before he jumps or something, and you think how can this guy be famous? And then you see 15 million views and
bigger than shit, bigger than many huge money productions by a lot. Those guys that got, I know Trump did an interview with they're called the Nelk Boys. I think they're Canadian. They do kind of, it's almost like Jackass, but not stunts. It's pranks. And I'd never heard of them. Last Thanksgiving, I guess, a friend of mine showed it to me, and I'm looking, it's 15, I think it was 50 million views. I was like, Jesus Christ, this is a 50 million viewer thing I've never fucking heard of. And then a year later, that Trump interview came out where he's talking to like, I'm like, why are high school kids talking? I forgot what it was. I'm like, oh, I see why that's pretty savvy. He talked to them because they have a huge fucking following. I think there's a lot of not taking the hint that people aren't that into establishment as they used to be. So, and there's like a thing where they just, I don't know. I've been in that where like, but it wasn't on its way out so much when I was working in that stuff. So there's really a thing, and there's always a new generation of suckers coming up that the industry is looking for. You know, like anything that's supposed to be good, like, yeah, we're going to hire more diverse people. What that really translates to is we want young suckers that don't know any better wherever we can find them. Like, are these the new batch that don't know what we're going to do to them? Yeah. That's what we're looking for. And I mean, now I didn't know this. Like a lot of agencies, for example, their primary money they make is not even like booking talent. It's just real estate. They invest a lot of real estate locally, and that's like the bulk of their money. And then the other shit's like a tax write-off. To me, that's the big, you know, what's the bill? The Federal Communications Act, where they let all the media companies just start gobbling each other up. So we have like 6 companies that control all the, you know, with Disney, I think it's weird that they have a monopoly on all the imagination now, like all the IPs.
Yeah. Pixar, you know, like that is the thing. It's like they also, I mean, they're dominating. I see it also. Disney Plus is growing, and the kids really looking forward to it. Look, from technology wise, I think Netflix is the best. You know, they don't buffer. It goes quick. You can switch to subtitles, whatever you want. But I have a tough time also to find new interesting stuff on Netflix. Recently, you start watching something, and then you, after like half an hour, you think, I'm not with it. You feel like this kind of let down. Also, a lot of doku shows they have a good story about that, because I'm filming for a year now.
What kind of shows?
Like documentary shows.
Okay.
And I see on Netflix, and I know now why, is they basically do documentaries only after the fact, like after it's all done. And then they go back in history and you see whatever Wayne Garcia or Ted Bundy or whatever. And because I'm filming a docu here with the Banditos, with, you know, the motorcycle gang. Like
The Banditos.
They are the second biggest after the Hells Angels. And from very early on, I know them. So they talk to me, they give me interviews, whatever. And I offered this to Netflix, and they're all scared about it, like, because they don't know how it ends. And I said, but the whole point of a documentary is...
Really?
Yeah. And I said, because I thought that Netflix, of course, will jump on it, because this game in 100 countries, right? And they didn't pass on it, but they also never did it. And then they forced me for the US to write like a 25 pages treatment about the show. And I said, yes, it's no problem. I can write it. But as you know, it's not a fiction film. So I don't know how it all will end after I'm done like shooting, right? So, because of course, in between when I started shooting, now they were in court. One guy's arrested in jail, like from the people, you know, like. And I said,
I'd love to watch this, by the way.
Yes. I said the people will binge watch that, and but also Tiger King, for example, they made after the fact. They made that after this guy was in jail, basically, and started doing it, right? So, and there was only luck that other documentary guy filmed them over years and had material over years. And I think that is very weak from Netflix, very weak, that position. Instead of jumping in that real, like the non-fiction stuff, in a way like, let's follow things as they progress. Then you have, in the end, great program, but they don't do it. They're all scared to greenlight and put money in something where you don't know in what direction it goes. And I think it's the mistake that Ted Sarandos and so did in hiring the wrong people. You know, they say we are risk takers, but they're not. The people like Ted Sarandos are not risk takers. They only want to keep their salary and their job, and they are very scared to make bold decisions. You know, And that was the thing. I mean, we had various projects when we pitched stuff here to Amazon and so on. But the reality and Netflix, but the reality is that the experience was always the same. They basically want risk-free program. And, but risk-free program is nothing what a subscriber wants. What they
that'd be like subscribing to elevator music, or subscribing to, like, when you're on hold on the phone, the music they play. This is not going to ruffle any feathers. It's just, my friend was saying to me as a comic, it was like, yeah, every gig is a corporate gig now. And that, I got into this because I wasn't fit to work in a normal environment. So I became a clown for a living. And I watched as all the kind of risk taker people were kind of weeded out of the industry in that way. Like, and I don't mean like just on like some white guy complaining level. Like, they don't like. I wrote for Chappelle's show, okay, which is like Chappelle's like fucking. Yeah, and Chappelle, like, they never want another Chappelle. They're happy to make money with the one who exists now, but they ain't looking for the next Dave Chappelle. They're looking for the next guy who would never do something like run to Africa and after they paid him $50 million. And I didn't understand when he did that at the time. I thought it was like pretty irresponsible. All these people worked on the show and all that, but in the long run, he muscled, like, when it season 3, the one they had to cobble together from when he left, and he wanted them to take it off HBO or something. I think the contract was a valid contract that wasn't in his favor, and they just had to do it. That's the only guy I know, a single guy, a comedian, that could muscle a corporation around. And you got to have, I guess, a pretty big ego to be able to do it. But I just happy to see someone do it. I've never even heard of anyone else doing that.
No, and I think he did the right thing, but he's also, I mean, he came then in the heavy waters with this kind of what were about trans rights. Right. Was a big scandal. He got big problems, but he got also the support. Not a lot of people getting that support. A lot of people get dumped because, I don't want to be connected to him. Look, now the Bill Murray got fired on the film for whatever misbehavior.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It was in the Hollywood Reporter, I think 2 days ago, with the Ansari guy as director.
Really?
Yes, and they shut down the whole production. And at first, everybody thought that he was again doing like molesting a woman.
Yeah, that nonsense.
And then it was Bill Murray who misbehaved, but it's not written that he did any, let's say, crazy sex stuff or whatever. And but I think also this overreacting to situations like this. I mean, how can you afford halfway through a production because somebody says whatever, he made a racist joke or something, to shut down the fucking film? I mean, you have to get over it and get things done, and it's like, I think also this kind of like everybody's on the tippy toes the whole time, and everybody is like this kind of self-censoring. I totally hate that. I talked with my friend Sean Williams in Vancouver. They shooting like The Good Doctor and stuff like this, and he said the mandates felt like the corona stuff, but the unions make you test every day, make you have the mask on. The unions insisting in keeping all that stuff, what makes it impossible for independent filmmakers to shoot the film. Because let's say independently say, I make a $2 million film, I raise the money privately, but you have to spend $250,000 for transport extra, for like masks, for testing, for quarantines. Nobody can shoot right now independent films because also the insurance doesn't cover you. So if your lead actor gets corona, he has to be quarantined a week.
Wow, that has to be terrible, because everything was being shot in Vancouver and for that's got to be terrible for like business. I don't understand.
No, it's for business horrible, and it costs like millions more in the bigger shows per season, millions more just for the corona stuff. But for example, if you don't have, like right now with Omicron, right? If you have an actor who has Omicron but feels good, why you cannot shoot with him? I mean, what the fuck? Like they still treat then the coronavirus in a way like it's death, it's Ebola. So we have to shut down. 200 people can go home because the guy needs to quarantine now, even if he has only 1 day headache.
Right.
It's insane because in the very end, then only what you said also about the corporates, you have 6 companies that can afford to make films then. No personal, private, independent filmmaker can go in production with that risk that in between a week, the guy will be sitting in a hotel room and cannot shoot because it's the end. The crew will walk. You cannot pay them anymore, and you're totally like ruined. And
that suits them just fine. That's the whole. I never understood how that shit worked, where it's all about gobbling up market share and making sure there's nobody else that can do anything. And I'm not a smart business person in the least. And then when I started to see how that worked, I was like, oh wow, like it's so much worse than I would have assumed what all the intentions are. And it's everywhere. I mean, hey, we got to take another break. So I could talk to you about our old friends, rockauto.com, longtime sponsor, the online store with every auto part at the best price, one-stop shop for auto parts. Been in business for 20 years. They make it easy to find the parts you need at the best possible prices. Listen, brick and mortar's over. We know it is. Why hassle yourself? I understand if you got to get away from your family, you can go. But if you're in a family who you love, why not go on rockauto.com and conveniently find everything you need without all the nonsense? If you're a car guy or a lady, go to rockauto.com and check out all the parts available for your car. You're going to have so much fun looking at car parts because, you're into cars. That's probably your thing. rockauto.com. There is no promo code because their pricing is already that good. And when you order, tell rockauto.com you heard about them on Can't Get Right with me, Kurt Metzger, which people have been doing apparently. So I appreciate it. Thank you. rockauto.com. All right, let's get back to it. Back when it struck me, especially in Canada, the way they were treating that trucker protest, which was a nonviolent protest, which, by the way, is the most threatening protest to any kind of power figure, is nonviolent, it turns out. Here, when we had the George Floyd, where there was mysterious pallets of protest bricks being left for people to use, like any kind of blowing shit up or burning stuff down, that suits the powers that be just fine. Like they like that. And then, so he burns the block down and Portland's on fire. It should be like their football team, the Portland Riots. They've been on fire every day for a different thing for like 2 years straight. And then, so they fuck up a block and then the small businesses die. And then the big companies, whoever, can buy up the whole area. Like, it should be very suspicious when major corporations are supporting your protest movement. That should make it a little suspicious is where it's coming from.
No, but it's all when you see right now the Russia or Ukraine situation, for example, right? So everybody asked Germany to switch the gas on.
I know, yeah.
So, and the reality is, when I a kilometer away from my house here are 500 Ukrainians in tents, right? So they we have here, we see it, the refugees. So, and so what you want to do is the big industry in Germany said if they switch off the gas, there will be over a year no replacement basically for it. Yeah. And you have to shut down, and 15 million people will get laid off out of all the German corporations. So what will happen then? What will happen then is that these 15 million people don't have any money. They will be very jealous about the Ukrainian refugees. They will say, who gives a fuck about Ukraine?
Yeah, right.
You swallow it up. We give a shit. We want our life back. And we are Ukraine is they make 5% of the German GDP, right? So it's there is a big dispute going on. And that is what I think is similar to the trucker protest or whatever, is that the governments, also Trudeau in Canada, or they want to be so political correct, and they're acting like the moral is dictating the surrounding or whatever the rules we live in. And it's not true. I think historically, it's historically the world was driven by violence, was driven by who has the bigger hammer wins, basically. Yeah. And then at the same time, moral comes always after survival and greed. And it's right. And I think I see a lot of people, they're not able to have a logical discussion. They always have a moral discussion.
Yes, right.
No question, it's no question that Putin is in a way losing his shit and is damaging himself with the invasion of Ukraine, but he did it. And he will not. And now that idea also from Biden and everybody, if we deliver weapons and weapons and weapons to the Ukrainians, that they will defeat Russia.
You think they want to do that? I got what I thought is they want to just have. They don't give a shit how many people die. By the way, it's to get Russia stuck like it's in Afghanistan.
Yeah,
and it'll harm Russia going on and on.
They want to keep them busy. So the Ukrainians think Zelensky is a big celebrity worldwide now. He will get maybe the Peace Prize and whatever Nobel Prize. Right. But let's say before the Ukraine conflict, nobody knew who was Zelensky, and the Ukraine was deeply corrupt. I mean, it is a deeply
Uwe, watch
government.
Here's what I got a big argument. I have friends Stitch and Adam that have a YouTube show. So Jimmy Dore, the guy I'm on, he's a big anti-war leftist. Okay, I'm non-binary. I'm not really, but the reason I like Jimmy is because he's very principled. So I really could give a shit what your leaning is, as long as you have a principle and it's not when we do it, it's okay, which is most of the principles here. So they're like anybody calling into question what you're describing, the moral Star Wars argument for the war of this is the good versus that's one of the most damaging. The idea that is going to be the light, our fucking presidents would say it, the evil empire, or they got to use this goddamn childish language for these things. And, last 20 years, I got over any kind of emotional feelings I had about, I look at wars now, how I look at the MCU. I was kind of interested when it first came out, and now it's just a bunch of explosions. I really don't get it. And so I'm like, how do you guys still manage to have this feeling working up? It's not that I think Putin's good, or I'm just how do you even manage to work up this moral fervor about it? I would just be embarrassed, especially after all this shit that came out about what we did and then what we do to cover it up. I think a lot of people kind of just don't know. Here's something I never knew until very recently was because they're talking about Putin should go stand trial for war crimes, in the Hague or whatever. We're not a member of that. America's not a member for a very important reason, so that no one can be prosecuted for the many war crimes that American leaders commit.
CIA operations and all kinds of stuff, right, in the history.
Right.
Yeah, and the Iraq War, whatever, started the whole Arab Spring in a way, the second Iraq War, and then all the dictators got removed and got replaced by completely crazy motherfuckers who were way worse as the dictator.
Yeah, right.
And that is the thing. Gaddafi did terror attacks, 25 years before.
I was just going to say that, Gaddafi.
And that is the thing, but that is exactly. I mean, you and me, and in a way, they are the same. We try to see something logically and not morally, from the moral point of view, right? So we cannot make every single country the same, and that is the thing. It's also when the Chinese put 1 million Uyghurs, Muslims in a concentration camp, we have to live with it. Because what the fuck we want to do? We cannot do anything about it.
Did you know we were detaining Uyghurs too for a while and that hadn't done anything wrong in Guantanamo? I didn't know that. I was like, who else did that? We did it.
Yeah, stuff like this. And then a lot of people were innocent sitting there. But that is what I mean. It's we cannot have always this kind of we are the greatest and the best, but in our reality, we did also a lot of bad things and supported the wrong cause or the wrong leader in countries. And I think that idea now, what is here big in Europe in the media, is that if the Ukrainians keep just getting good weapons, they will maybe defeat Putin, or Putin gets so much in trouble that they remove him as a leader, and he's since 22 years the leader of Russia. In Russia, 90% of the population don't even know that there's a Ukraine war because they're living on the countryside where they don't have any, they're driving around with a horse carriage, basically, and being farmers somewhere. It's only in Moscow and St. Petersburg where you have a middle class and where you have people now, they're saying, why the fuck the Apple store is closed?
Right. Have you been there to Russia?
Yes. I was in Moscow. I was also in St. Petersburg. And with some films, I was invited and stuff like this. But you see in Moscow that there is 600,000 people are a real middle class. It's not only like how we always thought it's the oligarch and the rest is poor. No, they drive Audis, BMWs, whatever. They go to the Gucci store. So there is a class. They suffer now. They see the stores getting closed and they will get mad about this, and they will go also to the bottom of it, because you can still find their alternative press in Moscow too, watch YouTube stuff or whatever. And then I think to remove Putin will take, of course, way longer. The idea now, if we support Ukraine 4 more weeks with some tanks and helicopters, that will put the needle in the direction that will only piss Putin more off. And what I think, what Zelensky is not aware, and a lot of the media also not, is that Putin is one red button away from just annihilating Kiev. He could just say, you know what? We're now throwing the real bombs, not the little ones who destroyed 2 buildings. Like tonight, we declare, they're pissing us so off, we just make Kiev flat. And Zelensky is then maybe dead, even if he's in the bunker, whatever. You can have bombs, the bunker will not hold up. And then the Klitschkos are dead, the Boxers are dead. So, and I think the West is seeing it completely wrong. I think Putin will not give up the territories he has already. And he will, just throw bigger bombs and using the real bombs he has, maybe even tactical nuclear weapons, to say, look, shut the fuck up, Zelensky. And that idea that he gets defeated, he retracts out of the Ukraine, he goes back, everybody comes back to Moscow, gives him shit, and they throw him out of the Kremlin. It will not happen. I don't see that happen. I think Putin will win that war, and the Ukrainians will lose more and more people, and more refugees will stream into Europe, and that is the reality. Did you
see any of the clips of Zelensky's I can't remember his name, but his advisor? Because it's interesting if you watch, it's very hard, I think, to get any kind of reliable information on it, to be honest, but you can see clips of them in interviews and stuff. And Zelensky, his advisor talking about, joining NATO. He goes, there's 2 possibilities, like Russia will eventually absorb us in 10 to 12 years, or we can have this bloody fight with them to join NATO, which would be cooler. He's it's being translated, but he said that would be the cooler option. And Zelensky said, which I think is very interesting, that America, they're like, no, you're not going to join NATO, but we're not going to say you can't join NATO. So we're going to publicly say it's open. You join NATO, but you won't be joining NATO. So I think all the people in charge know full well what will happen. I think there's the narrative for the Iraq war narrative for the common man is that thing of Putin will blow up you. I thought it was pretty clear what he wanted. I don't not get the thing that Putin wanted. My friends I was arguing through were well, he's a madman and this and that. I'm I think they should have just kept, because if it does end, let's hope that it ends quickly. But the only way it would end is it'll end up being the neutral territory that this whole shit was over in the first place, won't it?
Yeah, but that is also a thing when you go back in time, right? When the wall in Berlin came down and Gorbachev was basically, so everything was falling apart. The Warsaw Pact fell apart. They said that east from Germany, it should be neutral territory.
Right.
And then the NATO and the EU took Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic, everybody joined. And it was not fair against Russia, because they said they give up East Germany and so on, but that should be also it. And they opened, even Putin in the beginning was very open for wheeling and dealing, and it looked like they're turning into a capitalistic dictatorship, like the Chinese. They're also capitalistic dictatorship.
You ever been there?
What?
You ever been to China?
Yeah, I was in China also, and then they offered me to open there a restaurant and invited me there, and I passed on it after my trip. I said, "It's my life is too short. I'm just not doing it."
Oh yeah, they would just take it from you eventually.
Totally. Totally. And I felt also like I'm not traveling 14 hours with an airplane to check on a restaurant from time to time. Yeah. It's not money worth it.
That's a long ass flight. Yeah. My buddy, my last episode, I did this comedy tour out there, and this Australian guy, Andy Curtin, and this other guy, Turner Sparks, put it together. And I guess I'm lucky I got to go, because now that's not allowed, doing stand-up comedy. When I got there, it was kind of against the rules, but you could get around it because they only had an email list. But basically, and also the Chinese, I was surprised the Chinese comics were pretty knew how to do it. I didn't know what I expected them to be like, but they were all getting streaming stuff. So they were very familiar with stand up, and, I was surprised how decent it was. And it did very well as a thing. And so other bars and shit would get jealous. And, they got a snitch, this enforced snitch thing. So they would say, oh, they're spreading anti-communist propaganda. I didn't see any communist shit while I was there, by the way. I mean, unless you count the state controls everything, but it was the most capitalistic kind of place I've ever. It was Christmas, there's Christmas shit everywhere. People were wearing hilarious, the idea of having designer clothes with the price tag on it. So Minnie Pearl on Hee Haw, where she had that big price tag. This chick in front of me had an Ed Hardy jacket, which is hilarious to have a expensive Ed Hardy jacket, but it wasn't Ed Hardy. I don't know who made it. And it had this long, gigantic price tag on the back. And I got there right after they had shut down. There in Shanghai, there was this black market that was famous. Where it was great. I wanted to go there because supposedly you could buy Nike shoes that said Nike and Reebok on them, which I wanted those so bad. And it had been shut down by the time I got there. So I guess the guy before Xi Jinping was a little more open and people liked him better. But what happens is the more of this kind of saber rattling bullshit, how you're talking about Putin, America loves doing everything. Sanctions are such a great fucking idea. I mean, I kind of think they're borderline terrorism, because you're going to stress out the population in hopes they overthrow this guy. That's not what people do. People harden up and they start backing their guy because he's not you, because they don't like some outsider telling them how to fucking live, even if you're America.
Injustice from the other territories, right? And they say, look, why you make us suffer? It was also idiotic when they disqualified the handicap Olympics Russian team at the Paralympics, where they said
I didn't hear that one.
Yeah, so they in Tokyo, right? So then they disqualified people. And I mean, when you have a one-leg guy who trained 4 years to go to the Olympics, and then you say because of Putin went into Ukraine, your career is over. With tennis pros, they did that with other sports people. So it's this kind of baby behavior, and because you cannot hit him in a way. So you try to make other people suffer. And look, Russian immigrants are everywhere. In Germany alone are 700 or 800,000 Russians. So in the US, 100% more. And that is the thing where I think it's baby behavior. And the other thing is also this kind of again, underestimating Russia, as they did various times. Putin said years ago, I don't like if the Ukraine can join the EU or can join the NATO, they are a direct enemy for us. And it's right on our border, and it's our haven, right? So there is the only way to the sea is through the Ukraine for Russia.
Yeah, right.
So it was clear for me that he will take the Crimea because all his ships were there. So when everybody flipped completely out of him, how he took the Crimea, because all the ships are there since 50 years. And now because Ukraine says we are independent, you want to take it all away from us? Forget it. So, and now he did this operation, as he said, he did it to get the land in between the Crimea and Russia. And it's crystal clear, visible on the land, on the thing. I think the whole attack on Kiev and everything in the north was only a maneuver
Yeah, right.
To distract them, to take the South. But everybody else says Putin is an idiot. He's losing the war. He has no clue from his generals are total idiots.
I don't know how you trust that. I mean, I don't know.
I don't trust that. I think everything what happened is exactly when he said it goes as planned. I think it's actually happening. I think he wanted to distract. Everybody wanted to have a full-on war with the Ukraine, so they couldn't defend the South. Now he took all the South. Bombed the shit out of Mariupol, the one city where still like some soldiers were. And he will now say at one point, that is our new border and that is our territory. Then Ukraine and the West will say, that will be never acceptable, blah, 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 and then they have the choice, like, because we will then start forgetting them. Like,
of course, that's what we did with Georgia.
Yeah, we will dump Ukraine and we'll say, look, it's not top news anymore. Right. And then they will have endless little fights. They are going back and forth and back and forth. And that will hold the Ukraine back from really recover and getting the people back. They run away from Ukraine. I mean, They don't want, the Ukrainians were not like the Afghanistan refugees or whatever. They don't want to live here. They came here because they were fearing that their kids get killed and they get killed. So, and they're sitting in like schools and everywhere and apartments in all over Europe. And they want to go home. And that is the thing. And I think Zelensky should have that a little in his mind, like what he's doing for his ego, to his people. Because 10 million women and kids running around in Western Europe now without their fathers, and he didn't let anybody out of the Ukraine who was a male because they all have to mandatory fight. And so I think it would be his biggest interest to get a deal done and to get over it. He will lose parts of the Ukraine, end of the story, and he better accept it today as tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
they'll bomb it till it's not appealing for the EU, right? Like, well, we don't want to take this bombed out country into our trade thing. What is it?
No, and I'm a big I would not take Hungary or Poland even into the EU because they did a lot of things. They're benefiting from a lot of things. There are open borders. Drive in Germany over the Autobahn. You see tons of trucks from Poland and Hungary driving through Germany to France, to Spain, because there are no borders, no more control. What is good for Germany too? Germany is economically by far the strongest country in Europe. So, and it's for Germany good too that you don't have the borders. Everybody has the EU, the euro. But if you say you're a member of something, you also have to bring something to the table, right? And when Hungary and Poland said they don't take one refugee from Syria or one refugee from Afghanistan, and Germany took like 1.5 million, and they took none.
Yeah, right.
They got no penalty. And that made a lot of people very furious, including myself. You have to say to Poland or Hungary, okay, here's the deal. If you don't take refugees, you will not get any money out of the EU budget.
Right.
Or you have to pay into the EU budget $200 million to get so that you don't have to take the refugees. But you cannot be part of the EU. You benefit from everything. And then when it comes to we have to take refugees, and we will have more climate refugees from Africa coming in the next 10, 20 years. There will come more and more Senegal and so on coming up. So, and it cannot be that like 4 countries take refugees and the rest is just benefiting from it.
Yeah, right.
And that is unfair to everybody else, but that doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. And with the NATO, it's the same. Who said?
Yeah, Trump made me aware of that. Honestly, when he was talking about, because I didn't understand with NATO, basically we're just the army for a bunch of countries that don't pay the chip in. And he made that threat of like, you got to pay up or you're out of NATO.
It was true. And then you see that when the moment the Ukraine got into the war with Russia, the German chancellor said, okay, we put 100 billion in weapons, right? So, and it's this kind of like double-faced German policy under Merkel. Everybody loved Merkel, but in Germany she was not so loved because she did a lot of things like ruthlessly pro-economy, but against, for example, defense. She cut the defense budget. She felt like who should attack us? Nothing, because we have all the US troops here, and we have the nuclear bombs here in Germany endlessly stationed, right? So it's like we are basically the old front line to the east. And so we have all the military here and and Trump was right. He said, like, yeah, but if we spend so much money on military, and basically when the shit hits the fan, Germany thinks without paying their fair share that we will all defend them, so that they can make more profit with Siemens, with VW, with Mercedes. It's ridiculous. And I was always pro spending enough money for military in a way that you are protected, that you can say, look, even if there's not one American soldier, we can defend ourselves. And we can say, look, Putin, if you try to attack us, we will pulverize Moscow.
Right.
Because we, of course, have here very high-tech, similar to the US, Germany is a very high-tech country. With, like like nuclear things and special airplanes and stuff like this. And I think it was very, very sloppy from Merkel to completely for 20 years ignore it.
Didn't they all do that? I mean, is that kind of the big inherent flaw with, I don't know a whole lot about the EU, but isn't that like that thing of like where you're just locked in with a bunch of like other countries where like, basically, I mean, does it fuck your labor up, the wages, or does Germany have kind of protections with that?
No, I mean, like unions and everything, and but Germany, for example, never had a minimum wage, right?
Really?
So because the reason was always that is why Amazon loved it here, for example, the whole time. And now where the new government,
why Amazon? What? Say that again. Oh, loved it there.
Loved it because they paid only $8 an hour the whole time. But now they changed it after the last elections when Merkel was gone. The new government, the Social Democrats and the Liberals and the Greens have a coalition. They put it up to $12.50. So it's now there is a minimum wage. And the reason Merkel said the whole time we don't need it, was because we had a lot of Eastern European cheap workers, like Romanians, Bulgarians, Polish people, they came over, and any businessman negotiated with them. I give you $10 cash or something per hour. And that Merkel loved that because of course it drove the profits up in Germany for the corporations and the farmers and so on. Every single year when there's the potatoes coming in, whatever, you have basically no Germans workers on the fields anymore, zero. And in the big corporations like the car industry, the chemical industry, of course, they all make way over $20 an hour, because the unions are strong and they negotiate a totally different per hour fees for everybody. So, but it's every country has their own like flaws and everything. But a lot of times I think wherever you are, you think everywhere else it's better.
Yeah.
That is my experience till I lived in Canada. And then in Canada, for example, the medical system is horrible. Like
that's what they tell me there.
Yeah, you have no house doctors. When you have anything, you have to go to the clinic. Then you wait 6 hours and say, look, I just need ibuprofen. It's idiotic. And I had a gallbladder infection when I was in Canada. And then I went to the clinic. And then they said, oh, yeah, gallbladder, they gave me morphine to take home. And say like, just calm down at home. You have to go to a different clinic, but wait till Monday. We're too full. And if you had ever gallstones and gallbladder shit, like it really hurts, right? So you need morphine. I really needed the morphine. So, and then after 2-3 days, my health completely declined because there was something really blocked. And so I went to a different clinic. And then they waited another 2 days before they took my gallbladder out. They had to take it out. So they couldn't and then when we're living here in Germany, you have you can pick. You have a lot of clinics, public, but you have also private clinics.
Was it 2-tier? Is that called? Like, does Canada not have a 2-tier? Like in UK?
They have only one tier, public shit. They don't have private clinics. And so, and when you have in US, you have private clinics too. I mean, they are more expensive. But if I go here in Mainz, where I live, with the gallbladder in the clinic, like the next day, my gallbladder is out. I mean, 100%, they say, okay, we take it tomorrow out, end of the story. And then I pay extra for my health insurance.
This is in Germany, you mean?
Yes. So I pay, you can say I, as a private person here, I'm not employed, I'm self-employed, so I pay double for my family as what other families pay. So, but then...
Is it cheaper than here still, even though it's double then?
Yeah, you can say a family with 2 kids, you will pay $1,500 a month. So, but that comes the good part. Dental is in, to go to the dentist is all covered. And then when you get any operation, whatever, you'd never see a bill. So, and that is good because yes, of course, for years, you maybe pay more in as you get out. But then when you have something,
yeah, right,
no question asked, and an operation with full narcose and whatever is maybe $15,000-$20,000, and it's you pay zero down, So, and I like that system. And in Canada, everybody has the care card, but then nobody has dental in Canada. Nobody. The dentist you have to pay on your own. It's the reason that people don't go to the dentist. Then the teeth are rotting, and you make everything worse.
Yeah,
it's not a good. It's not.
Because I always, I remember when I went to England and they're like, they had that like a 2-tier system. And I guess if you're real lefty, the 1 tier is because, well, it won't be good unless everybody has to use it. But I think Canada kind of maybe disproves that. And that's why I'm curious, usually here when it comes, because it's crazy how it works here. My girlfriend's sister needed a hip operation. She was telling me, and she's good at finding programs and stuff to pay for it, and they mistakenly thought her sister had insurance, so it was like $7,000 for without insurance. This program, when they thought she had insurance, they were going to charge her $25,000. And
so she had a fake hip or a hip replacement.
Yeah, something like that. And but that's what, in fact, I've gone to doctor like a chiropractor or something, if they see you have an insurance card, it's wild what they do. I mean, really greedy, insane shit. Yeah. And it's so grotesque, and nobody, Obamacare ended up being a fucking joke, and they didn't, when I think about that, how that was such a fight for this, it's basically a blowjob to insurance companies, and it was like you had to be happy because I had a girlfriend at the time who had Crohn's disease, so she couldn't, Obama at least passed a thing where she could stay on her parents briefly because nobody would want to insure her. She had a pre-existing condition. Yeah. And it's so this is why I hate that either or black or white shit, because people will just glibly, well, Canada sucks. I'm like, well, it doesn't have to be like Canada. We could just do something a little better than outright theft. I didn't even know how bad it was, when here with the vaccine, there we go. What if someone you love needed a bed, couldn't get a hospital bed because an unvaccinated person was taking up a bed? And that sounded stupid on the face of it to me, just because, were they going to come out and, oh, sorry, we can't help you. There's an unvaccinated in here. What if I'm obese or what, But what didn't occur to me, somebody else said to me was, well, why aren't there enough beds? And, well, it's on purpose. And I looked it up. I'm reading an article that's bragging about this. So all the hospitals are owned by private equity firms, okay? In fact, 3/4 of them are owned by one goddamn company. And they run it because that's not a profitable place, have enough beds for everyone. In LA, in 2018, there was a flu epidemic briefly where they didn't have enough beds and they had set up tents. They didn't even seem to do that for COVID here. So they're aware that this is a problem that could happen. They run it that way on purpose because it's more profitable. Everything's always put on whoever the smallest person is. That's who this shit gets put. Oh, well, it's your fault that you fucked this up. That's everything here is like that. And then it sounds like, especially when you're describing the EU thing, you said every country has this unique problems. Well, now there's this weird where, I guess because it's globalization, it's all no, we're all going to have the same problems. Whatever country you're in, BLM is these things become chain problems, like a McDonald's or something everywhere. And it kind of starts to homogenize things. I'll give you an example. I didn't understand, when I lived in New York and anything about immigration, I'd be like, well, what's the problem? That we're just taking the jobs Americans don't want. Because I didn't do any jobs like that would be threatened by any, I guess in comedy though, a lot of immigrants have taken like, the Daily Show and things like that. But I didn't, it's a real arrogant thing to think like, well, people just don't want to be paid like slaves. So then when there is a wage that like, so you're talking about Netflix when they had the 25-person protest against Dave Chappelle that the whole press here reported on. Meanwhile, the biggest fucking protests were going on against, John Deere and it wasn't Nestle, but some company that makes 20 different fucking things.
Yeah.
No coverage of those over those wages. Like that's by design.
Yeah, but that is this kind of Me Too, cancel culture, woke culture.
It's sanctions.
Exactly, and they go for it. One thing about the health is, for example, in Germany, the house doctor. Everybody has a house doctor, so it's like totally different as Canada, where you have no house doctor. So, but when I go here to my doctor, he has ultrasound, he has X-ray, he has like he can measure your heart stuff. So he has technical shit there. What other people like in Canada, nobody has that. In Canada, you go in a walking clinic and they basically measure your blood pressure or something, right? And then if you have to take blood in a lab, you go to live labs the next day, and then they take your blood and you sit there for 45 minutes. Here, all this is doing your house doctor, all of that shit. So you basically don't overflow to the clinics, what you said with the beds, right? So that is the reason, like, before you go here really to a hospital, something really shitty has to happen, because your house doctor basically can check you out, including X-rays. So and will not send you to the clinic. Yes, at COVID, when the COVID was on the highest mark, of course they had the clinics here also almost full. But then it turned out later they always, and that we talked about that the government lied to us. It turned out they didn't report it another 10,000 intensive care beds. They didn't report it, so that it looked in the press. You have to stay home. You cannot, because
Jesus Christ,
beds are almost all taken. We have only in all of Germany only 5,000 beds left. So stay home, have the mask on, whatever, right? But that was a lie, because they did on purpose this panicky situation, because they of course wanted less context. They wanted that people are scared to go anywhere.
Yeah, less context. That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
But then the lies come out later. And it always comes back like a boomerang throwing, right? So it's and that is, I think, the real like big picture problem is there is no good and bad, and you cannot really trust anybody. Right. Like you cannot just say Fauci has always right, and this guy's not, and whatever.
People bought they bought votive candles of him. It's fucking insane. And I'm like, do you actually like love him, or do you think somehow this like hurts Trump? Like, I swear to God, I got the impression from people telling me how they love Fauci. It was like they somehow think that's harming Trump. Trump was all pro-vaccine and pro-booster. He was not like it was so bizarre, and it's so like I don't know. I grew up Jehovah's Witness, which is like a doomsday cult basically, and I bring it up pretty much every show to death, but. I watched, they always used to say, if you have any problems about anything going on, you don't want to stumble your brother out of the true faith. You don't want to say anything, maybe it's true or whatever, but that's the worst thing that could happen, is you harm someone's faith with whatever your problem is. So the thing where you're subordinate to the organization's good name, that's how all the problems happen with everything. That's how people get molested. That's how like all that happens. So I left when I was like 21, 22, and then I got out in the world. We call it being worldly, right? And I would just see this repeating pattern over and over again with everything, but not even with like God involved. Just, you don't want to shake people's faith in the Democratic Party or whatever the fuck it could be. That's a big one now. Like half of my friends that are way more lefty than I am are labeled right wing now. They're called right wing. And it's because you don't get to pick. The only identity that you get to pick yourself now is like something you want to do something wild with your gender. Every other identity, we will give you the label of what you are. You don't get to pick it. You're like, well, I'm very liberal. No, you're actually alt-right. we will bestow those titles on you. There's just this weird little like power flip that people just buy into, and it's not that I'm so smart. Like I said, I was in a thing where that one particular thing I'm almost like vaccinated against because I just have seen it so much. And I always have a problem with it all the time. It always creates a problem wherever I am because I can't stand that. Like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like the feeling of if I don't have kids. So if I go over a friend's house with kids and, like it's Christmas time and they'll be like, yeah, if so-and-so's good, Santa will come. And they're giving you a cue that you're now involved in their Santa lie for the child. Yeah. I'm like, all right, fine. I'll be in your conspiracy until the kid Santa's real. But it's like that imposition, like, we're all saying this now. And if you're a little bit brighter, it's your responsibility because people are so stupid and they'll believe the dumbest shit unless you help us with this lie to nudge them in the right fucking direction. So,
I'll give you an example. What is interesting about so I did a movie last year here in Germany about Hanau, and Hanau was a guy running amok 2020, and he killed like 9 Turkish people, in the city of Hanau by Frankfurt. So, and I made the film about it, like a fiction film, not a documentary, a fiction film. And then there was a newspaper report about it that during we were shooting the film. And then the newspaper wrote about it because there was like a German famous actress also in it. And then the city of Hanau flipped completely out. Like the mayor, he said, that is an insult that Boll is like profiteering out of the attack in Hanau. So,
but only the news gets the profit from
that. But that's the point. Like that he had no clue whether there was. I still don't have any profit of the film because it was an independent film. But the reality was then this: I couldn't even put my word in. Nobody saw at that point the script or the movie or anything. The press jumped on it everywhere in all the newspapers. How could Boll make that film 2 years only or 1.5 years after the thing happened, right? So
that seems like a long time after it happened.
Yeah, I know also. And I said, what was this Breivik and the other movies done about all kinds of terror attacks, right? So, and I said but that was not the tone. The tone of the press was that I am against the victims' families. I want to hurt the victims' families' feelings that the brother is dead. And then they went to all the victim families in Hanau and they all said, yes, Boll should never made that film. And one newspaper wrote in my favor, right, the Welt newspaper, and they because they said, like, how can you all judge a film without seeing even a trailer? Right. So why you think Boll is doing something what is an insult to the victims or something? You don't know what the fuck he's shooting, right? So, and I thought that what everybody normally had to say about it, like how the mayor could like rail up everybody so much because, of course, the thing is this: the film's name is Hanau, and now Hanau, the city, the mayor thinks my fucking city is the whole time now blamed for this terror attack that we didn't stop. That we didn't stop that, and the police actually made mistakes in that night because he went. He went to 3 different shisha bars, and shot on 3 different locations. People. Then he went home, shot his mother and himself. It
draws attention. Wow.
Yeah, the perpetrator never saw the police during the whole attack.
Wow.
Because they were then later, the SWAT team came to his house. They identified where he is, but he was already dead. So he shot himself in the head. So, and that is why I made the film. I made the film because the guy was a completely conspiracy theorist, and he thought the CIA, he's an agent of the CIA. He left a video message and everything on YouTube, what he taped in the afternoon before he went balloony. And he said that he basically fulfilled the order of God. And so he was done. He was like totally out of it. So, and I think it's important to tell stories like this. It's important to show what can happen. And with the fanatics from the left, from the right, from the Islamistic people, whatever, I think it's very important to face these situations and to hopefully overcome this, that you find people who could get violence earlier. That you flag them earlier and you stop them earlier. So and it's a psychogram, like a psychogram, like a film about the perpetrator, not about the victims. It's like we follow that guy from A to Z through the film till he shoots himself, and the victims are just victims. He goes in and shoots everybody, but and it's not an insult to the victims. It's like a movie like this has the absolute right and that it gets made. But then Netflix didn't bought it. Amazon finally bought it. Now Amazon bought it. Apple has it. But it's ridiculous that I have then problems because of this cancel culture. I had major problems to get deals for the film.
Right.
Even if it's a super important subject matter in Germany, everybody knows what happens there. And of course, in the beginning, Netflix was super interested. And then they saw all the negative press and they're like, ugh.
Yeah, that little gatekeeping, because there's another aspect to it, which is if someone else made it, who I'm sure those media people considered to be their sort, like
totally
the Jimmy's show. So, now I was raised with no faith in any politics. So I'm not like disappointed, but Jimmy had this force the vote movement he had that was picking up steam for, because AOC and all these people got in. Basically it was to get them to do the thing that they said they were going to do, which was force a Medicare for all vote, which certainly wouldn't pass, but everyone would get to see who votes against it because they'd be surprised which Democrats that are supposedly for it are not for it. Yeah. And all of a sudden it was like people, especially media people, and I don't even mean such mainstream press, but there's still billionaire funded press who are ostensibly for this. Suddenly we're like, no, it's the wrong time to be doing this. You can't be, you're the wrong. And it's because he's not their sort. They didn't like that this guy was getting this going. It wasn't them doing it. That's a big part of it. That's why, do you know who this guy Christian Smalls is? The guy who got the union going in New York with Amazon?
Amazon, yeah.
Now, I became aware of that guy a couple of years ago before I started writing for Jimmy's show because I couldn't believe his story, like how bad he got. The story, long story short, is he basically was one of their best employees that they ran out of the company because he was saying, hey, COVID might be here already because people are going to these sales meetings in Seattle and coming back sick. The company, so this is information. If I had a business, I would like to know. It'd be helpful. He got fired. All this Amazon's horrible. And so he formed a union and didn't get support. It's amazing the amount of not getting support. And then the memos that got leaked where this guy used to work for Obama. Now he works for Amazon. Where, racist smearing this guy. Like, yeah, he's inarticulate. It's their strategy to down this guy with no I don't know how people are aware of this. Like, it's not that unions can suck. It's not that they're just always great. A union happens because it's got to happen. It doesn't happen any other reason. A lot of people are like, "Ooh, I just want to be in a union." The conditions are so bad that people are willing to throw in on a fucking union. That's how they start. Yeah. All these companies think, no, we're gonna, make like a videotape to tell you how to report on someone who's that just encourages more unions, dude. So this guy got it done. He goes on Tucker Carlson to talk about the union. His appearance is great because Tucker tries to make it about AOC or whatever. And he goes, well, it's not really her. It's all of them. I just want to focus on the union. He does a great job. Then these pieces of shit from Media Matters trash this. Suddenly Black Lives don't matter when they're looking for a union, it turns out. They trash this guy because it's bad. He went on It's not, they don't give a fuck about the workers and getting their message out to a huge audience. It's he betrayed the bigger picture, which is my petty feelings about Tucker Carlson or whoever. Yeah, the mentality,
all unions in all of America, like that. That is the thing. It's like the side thing turns into the major thing.
Yeah,
and it shows also how journalists selling out, and they are not interested in any form of truth. They're only interested in that they getting liked for their position they have against something, and that is the thing. It's like very disappointing, to see this kind of absurdity. And that was one of the I told you I think we did before we taped it, but that I'm releasing a book here in Germany about you cannot say the truth anymore. And it's exactly where I brought a lot of examples in where this kind of censoring happens, like because we're already in that stadium, like it's not like you do something, then you get criticized and canceled.
You got to plan ahead.
Yeah, 95% of the people do things not because they're scared what could happen. And that limits democracy, that limits also knowledge and culture, arts, stand-up comedy, like this kind of like when you always have to think like, oh shit, if I do that joke, I'm out of the business. And then you basically have nothing left. You have nothing left to talk, to show, to be as an artist in any form, progressive or push things over the boundaries. Think about old films like Something's Wrong About Mary, whatever.
Yeah, right.
Naked Gun. This kind of films could never be shown again. Like never be shot again. They would like less.
Well, you're supposed to be happy about that and not complain about it. That's actually you're wrong. It could never be made. I'm used to hearing the response like, I'm sick of hearing it could never be made again. Good. We shouldn't have good stuff.
No, but I like it. But when Seth Rogen said he feels like a lot of his films aged very badly because they were not politically correct. But that is what Seth Rogen made. Like that are his.
He ain't given his spot away. He's going to continue to be in his movies. He's not giving away his white male spot. He's like, we need to have a lot less. I mean, I'll still be grandfathered in, but everybody else will need to be like something more diverse. The thing that's funny to me is I'm not even a comic that's like, oh, you can't do, like, I think it's a good deal worse than you can't do comedy anymore. Like, I kind of feel like jokes are the only thing you can do. You can only kind of do, you got to encode whatever you feel like with a joke in a way that they have to. I mean, it's kind of jokes I like. What you can't do is just say how you feel about whatever. That's what you're not allowed to do. Just basic expression of how you feel.
Yeah.
I could take the time and write a joke that I've never been in trouble. I've had the entire press try to fucking ruin my life. Not for any jokes I said, for me saying what I felt about something, which is what the crackdown is on. So it's way beyond now. I don't know if people get that. It's like, it's way beyond the thing of like, oh, I can't make that joke. Like, I don't have any, I don't consider myself edgy or any of that shit. I don't even like those kind of terms. I do like jokes where I have like, if you follow the logic, and it comes to like the wrong conclusion, that's bad, but you followed it all the way. So you have to accept, like, I like to trap the crowd with shit like that because they have to give it to you. They can't like, I don't know. That's the thing that I get off on. I tell jokes. And
but that is perfect for a stand-up situation, right? Where you slowly feed the audience. They're laughing about things. You basically, and then you lure them into the death end of the road, and they have to agree with you in a way, but because there was no other solution. I love that too. I mean, I think good comedy always has to hurt somehow, right? So, and it has
to hurt like the truth hurts.
Yeah, so, and I think that is very important. Yeah. So, but the same in movies where you have like, when you make like just hangover movies or whatever movies like this, they are right now, they would be too offensive to make, and then they don't make them anymore. And that is the thing. Like, I loved ruthless humor in films, where you basically think about Kentucky Fried Movie or something, like there were so many films done in the 80s, 90s, and then up to 2010. And then the Twitter police canceled everybody, and I feel it's idiotic to exclude everything what you can think you should put in arts too. And,
well, it's not, it's not, I used to think it was like political. I didn't understand how shit really worked. And it's really a matter of, so like you were talking about the reporters and shit. So the new generation came out of the colleges and shit. And my friend Aramate, he writes for the Gray Zone, and probably one of the most honest guys I know that is a journalist. And he's definitely considered fringe by the like, they don't like him.
Yeah.
It's because it's like it's considered toxic to just tell the truth. Like you doing that documentary or that movie about that town. Yeah. It's like, how could you do that when it'll hurt our image? Like adult children of alcoholic shit. Jimmy says, which is what it is. Dad's sleeping. Don't say that. Like it's like this elitist, like craven careerist kind of people. And I wrote for a lot of stuff. I'm pretty lazy. I don't like to write, but I needed the money and I just fell into it. I had to do it. And, and I got to write for some cool shit. Like, I don't want to complain. I got to do better shit than probably a lot of people, but I was always like a loose cannon. And by loose cannon, I wasn't like mean to anyone. Yeah. I would just say, I told this story before. One producer, there's this girl, Rachel Dolezal, that said she was transracial back in like 2013 or something. And she had been faking. And I asked the one producer, I'm like, okay, well, you could be transgender. Like, you can't be trans. Like, why? Now, I'm not saying this as some kind of like trap anyone. I just like, because he seemed very vehement that this was ridiculous that she said this. Okay. And his answer to me that I'll never forget, he goes, Kurt, that was the answer, was just that. And I've pondered that. I'm telling you, for like 15 years, I'm like, what it meant was, why would you even ask a thing like that? Because he's a professional guy. I'm not trying to down this guy. He's a professional corporate guy, and they just know. I've always not known how you're supposed to just act in these, I know where my salad fork goes and shit, but there's so much more to it where, you're not their sort. You're like, and they're like, they can't believe, why are you even thinking about that? We're trying to think about a next level of success we're getting to, and you're over here doing these things. And not everybody in showbiz is like that. I know a few people. There are always like a few people that are like kind of the real deal that, I don't know, they either like generated money for somebody or they do good work. But it really is like all these craven people where they're like, I know better than to touch certain. The thing you're talking about, where they give you the tools to censor yourself, that's like, do you want to be successful? So what happened as Twitter and all that morphed together, and now you fly your flag that way of who you're with. Are you at the cool table, or are you at the lunch table of untouchables and special handicapped Russian Olympians? You want to be with them, or do you want to be? You want to be?
No, you're totally right. I mean, it's a big situation. What in my generation, I think I'm like 10 years older as you, right? So, and it's this kind of like, we grown up in a way very free, very like this kind of like, you could, you could whatever in the school class, you could make a joke about a gay guy. You could make a joke about any race, any skin color, whatever, right? And you were not like, that was not the end of your life. It was like, like some people were like,
you might get corrected, but it wasn't like a thing where.
Exactly. But it was not like, now you will never work again for the rest of your life. And I think also in arts or in stand-up comedy, it was harsher. It was like this kind of like, who gives a shit? And that kind of freedom, in a way, went away to the Twitter police. And now you have to only follow the rules of the Twitter police, who are not existing, basically. It's just random people at home being able to infiltrate social media so much that it starts infiltrating the real media and the real journalists. And then you have this kind of like living in George Orwell's world. So, where, and that is, I think it's a total disaster. And that is also one of the reasons I think the Republicans went so far to the crazy world, because it's a reaction to it. It's a reaction to we don't want to be limited always. We want to do whatever we wanted to do 20 years ago. We don't want to follow all that rules. And then they go to the balloony world, basically, in a lot of things, say what they believe in. But they also just don't want to get limited and censored for
they used to be for. This is the thing that's funny, is I remember when Iraq happened and they were all for censoring anybody. I'm not I've never liked. I basically wrote them off a long time ago. Now it's like, what do you want to help? If you're not directly helping me, then you're helping Republicans. But I wrote them. I expect nothing from them. The thing I'm shocked at is like the people portraying themselves. Have you heard this term both-siderism that comes up on regular news? Like, oh, that's both-siderism, which is an insult.
Yeah.
I watched the guy saying it, and I'm like, what? So what are you, like a good one-sider? Is that the admirable quality that I should have one-siderism?
Yeah, exactly.
Or whataboutism is in Europe. They say whataboutery, which is like a fancy store at the mall or something. And it's like we're demonizing Putin. Don't you dare bring up that we're huge hypocrites who have a record of murder as extensive, and we got away with probably more because we know about the murders he did more than he probably wants us to. That's intrinsically, don't point out hypocrisy. That's the message in there. And now, see, in the beginning, I was there when it changed. Like I started to see it start to happen, right? And it was regular people. Now, all these companies, see, there's a whole consultant class. The thing of like, I don't want to say the wrong thing. Well, how do you make sure? Because you got to hire a consultant who specializes in looking over your shoulder and, oh, maybe don't do this and maybe don't do that. So now there's a whole fucking industry of consultants whose job it is to protect you from the sanctions of Twitter, right? And now, like, I didn't even know this. I was in Vegas. A friend of mine, Karate Kid show on YouTube. They made a remake.
Yeah,
my friend Brett.
Yeah,
it's good, right? So my friend Brett's on it, and he lives in Vegas now. And I met all these people that are, big time, kind of like I guess agents or whatever, but they're of internet personalities. And I guess the money's like even way bigger. And the shit that they think of to do to generate clicks, I wouldn't even enter in my head. Like, this is a minor thing that maybe sounds simple, but I would have never thought to do this. In the comments on a YouTube, they'll plant negative comments against the person because it riles up that person's fans so that they'll fight with this fucking insult.
Yeah.
And the algorithm, because they know how the algorithms work. So then it generates all his interest because you want comments. And if somebody gets in a fight, somebody's already figured that out like way, like 5 years ago. And it's like way more stuff than that. When Kyle, that I guess you had dinner with, Jackie Tone's ex-boyfriend. So we make sketch stuff on, he does impressions and we use those shitty, we don't do deep fakes. We do face swaps, which are shittier because it's funnier. Deep fakes aren't funny. It fucks it up. We tried to figure out a long time why an expensive deep fake isn't funny, but I think it's because it looks too good and then it draws attention to the voice is not the exact person's voice. Whereas these look like a caricature. And it's growing. They're like pretty popular. Well, his Instagram got a shadow ban put on it. Okay. So he would get like 500,000, 800,000 people views on some of these things we make. And suddenly it's 11,000, but no idea. So we had to go to a consultant who I think we call Brett's guy, who calls somebody at Google. Like you have to go to a guy who knows someone there because who are you going to call the company? And they were able to look it up and they go, oh yeah, he got shadow banned. And they could tell you the exact date and time and what it was for. I would have never guessed what it was for. It was for a flyer. We have a sketch on his channel called Pussies where we're like basically pussies.
Yeah.
I'll send it to you. It's one of our more popular bits. Yeah. And we've never gotten in trouble for that. It was a flyer for the live show we did at Largo with just a picture of us. For some reason, 18 people complained about it. And so they just shadow banned us. So you don't get notified of that. You just see all of a sudden you don't have. So then they have to get a bunch of chained together like Facebook accounts to just start bombarding it with traffic. And then that like wakes it up. Just shit. It's like this really elaborate, almost hacker kind of thing. That's going to be the future. You're going to have to get, because now these companies are the size of small governments. So you're going to have to get your own like intelligence. And I didn't know how much there's like private intelligence agencies, like never mind the CIA, because all these people, Obama's on fucking, they all go in the private industries when they're done with whatever, ruining Syria or whatever they're doing. They get into private industry. And so you have the kind of skullduggery of like Disney Star Wars. The machinations behind the scenes are actually more interesting than the actual Star Wars by a lot.
The Cambridge Analytica, right? Similar to this.
Yes. Like, so when they're all mad about Cambridge Analytica, like, oh, he helped Brexit with, they were actually like, oh, we got to get our hands on that and use it for ourselves. And that's what everybody does now. Yeah. It's unless you were like savvy to that level with tech, which I am not. I mean, I tell people about it. They're like, what? Like, most people aren't even aware of it. But these things are gamified 5-10 years before you get there, and the angles, whatever kind of, why do you think conspiracies are popular? Because, my feeling is a lot of this shit's really just in the open, so it's not a conspiracy, but there is that kind of shit going on all the time. It's just not for fun stuff like aliens. It's how to like get ahead on a fucking YouTube algorithm, and people would do anything for it. Like, I can't believe the shit people would fake. Like if I just told a story about anybody I know.
I met a guy once. He sold only on Facebook, like hair straighteners, like, and he bought them in China, like totally, like like for girls, they have like the curly hair and they can straighten it, and it was like kind of whatever shampoo thing or whatever. But I have no fucking clue. But he made like $500,000.
Yeah, right.
With this shit only through Facebook. And he said you can buy the same thing for half of the price somewhere else. But he was able to trigger it with a special Facebook ad campaign that they basically bought it without a price comparison or whatever, right? So, and that are people, this is exactly what you said. There are people, they are so tech savvy, they can make out of shit gold, basically, right? And we are like putting up a good idea or a good trailer, and then nobody watches the trailer. And then you think like, why nobody watches the trailer? How it can get more people watching the trailer of the film, whatever. Yeah. And then you have other things. But at one time I did a YouTube video where I said, fuck Hollywood, whatever. I got 1.9 million views because
it's a popular sentiment.
But still, I did other videos that were way more offensive and nobody gave a shit. And then took off. Then it was like, even like radio stations were like, Boll says they can fuck all off in Hollywood. And normally they could also never reported about it and, and say, who gives a shit if Uwe Boll says something? But this, they all took and all wrote about it, BuzzFeed and whatever.
Oh, right.
But I still don't know why. Why?
Because you hit on some popular culture war bullshit. This is like the chattering classes, it's called, that work. It's like court. Chris Hedges, I watched saying this is like court gossip in King Louis's court. That's what passes for like news. So like, ooh, did he say fuck Hollywood? So that battle of like, I guess out of Caddyshack of like the snobs versus the slobs, that's, you hit on just a thing that's popular. And so now, and the other thing is, I didn't realize how much this stuff, like flat Earth has made a huge comeback. The idea that the Earth is flat has become.
I know. Some,
and you'll see a lot of decrying of like, oh my God, we're going back to medieval. This is the Dark Ages. They're like, well, why are we in the Dark Ages? Because when you economically move towards feudalism, that's what fucking happened. Like, we're going towards feudalism. So you have a peasant class that you want them ignorant. You don't want to give them the full story because they might not do what you want. What do you think they're going to fucking do? Start believing the Earth is flat because they don't trust a single thing they hear. To me, it's not even dangerous because I'm like, it would be dangerous if it turns out the Earth is flat and you're telling them it's round. That could be dangerous. But if it turns out it's round and they're wrong, it's not. Go ahead and take a walk and see how it turns out. It'll be fine. It's a matter of not. It's I don't know. You put it a good way before. It's like. Now, because it has something to do with monopolies, but once the business is not the actual business anymore, like the way you make money is not on the actual thing, it creates all this. Like, you ever see how pigs, when they test how smart they are, because they're super smart. So like a dog, they'll train it to like knock a ball into like a golf hole with its nose, and it'll push it all the way. And a pig will just pick the ball up in its mouth and drop it in the hole because it's too smart to waste its time with the stupid thing. Okay, I'm a dog. Like, I will perfect my nose hitting the ball into the hole. But there's a lot of pigs out there that are just like, oh, you can get the money much faster just doing this one thing. And now they have the tech to do it, and it's amazing. That's kind of what happened in Russia when Boris Yeltsin was in, and they gave people shares of all the nationalized companies, and then a few smart people, hey, I'll take those off your hands because you're starving.
Yeah.
Like, that's like the big downfall of, like I said, I'm not in any way, I wouldn't call myself any kind of socialist or whatever, but in fact, I don't even believe in a left or right. That seems like a puppet show to me at this point. To me, it's how few people, like the income inequality or shit I would have never talked about 10 years ago. It's so great now that we don't even have capitalism. Like, they make this shit nobody wants and fail, and then they'll have another thing out that fails, and it's because they're getting investment money. So those tech companies, which I bring this up a lot because it blows my mind. They always don't turn a profit. It's all about gobbling up market share, and you don't make any money for the first 20 years.
But the owner is the billionaires then, and who gets richer and richer, and the company never makes any money, and that is the absurdity. It's also absurd, I think, when now all the Black Rocks and all that companies, whatever, Reese Witherspoon got $1 billion for her company based on what? I mean, yeah, she's a good actress, but I mean, where's the real cash value to ever recoup the $1 billion out of the profits she would make? How you ever want to recoup $1 billion? It will never happen. But it's kind of like the absurdity that money got printed without interest on it, without this kind of like you get the money for free if you're big enough. And all this went totally off charts. And now we're turning into a totally different situation where the inflation drives the prices up. People's income is not going high up, like more as 1 or 2% a year, but you have 10% more cost for energy, for food and everything. And that is exactly what you said with the feudalism. Like we're going backwards. We will have more Elon Musks and like Dream flying to the Mars and spending money on Twitter, whatever. But you have more and more people that cannot afford the living and they can pay the rent. And but the celebrity industry is part of this kind of like the clowns for the real billionaires or for the big money. But they getting, if you're the right person like the Kardashians or whatever, Beyonce and all that people, there are like 4,000 people. They're getting really filthy rich. Celebrity.
It's like a monarchy, dude. It's like
completely overpaid. They get making absurd amount of money, and then you have a lot of other people who basically are happy to make a living, they're happy to get through, and are not like, even if they're sometimes famous, but they don't have cash. So they, and that is also what worries me a lot, because it's this kind of like a total injustice. It's this kind of like totally absurd how some idiot gets $500 million for his music rights, and people like Orson Welles or Peter Bogdanovich or people like icons died poor and had nothing, and that is the thing. It's like it's kind of absurd.
Well, did you know now it's way worse? I didn't know this with music. Like with COVID, they're getting close to you're like a slave of the album. It was always exploitive, but now it's gotten, because you used to have your touring money and stuff. Now the labels get all of that. That's what they, people couldn't go out and tour, I guess, because of COVID.
Yeah.
But the thing that blew my mind with, everything's in venture capital. That's why there's not real competition. That's why you're not getting people like capitalism. Well, where the fuck is it? Because people don't have to compete. You just get capital. Some of those companies, those tech companies now, will sometimes accidentally turn a profit, and they have to cook the books to look like they're not making a profit so they can get another round of venture capital. Like when I heard that, I was like, that's mind blowing.
Instead of being happy that they make finally money and saying, look, now we have a real business, whatever, Uber or something, right? So instead of like, they keep milking the financial system, and then they're turning into things that are not like the business plan, but they have to diversify and whatever. And then we have this app and doing this and that. But I have to stop doing the podcast because I hear everybody yelling.
Oh, yeah, it's 10. Oh, we went long, man.
Dining room, they're like, we want to eat. So,
hey, well, thanks for talking, man. I really do appreciate it. Are you promoting anything?
No, but I have with my friend Gary Otto, I do Uwe Boll Raw. It's also a podcast you can listen when you have free time in US. And I hope that my Hanau film soon, we did subtitles. I will send you the trailer.
Yeah, let me see, man.
You can watch it. I hope we can soon get it in US up everywhere in the streamers because it's worth to watch it, And otherwise, I just wish you the best. And
you too, brother. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I hope next year, my plan is next year I go back to North America and try to do a production. And it was good to be in Europe. I mean, it's kind of like I was so long in Canada and you're so far away from culture. It's like you're sitting there in Vancouver and nothing happens. And in Europe, you feel like you're in the real world. You're in the middle of everything. And that is what I like in Europe. But of course, I wouldn't like if we get a full-blown war. Then
no, that's not a good.
I'll fly back to back. So I'm not dying for the Ukraine myself. Let's say it this way. So
well, let's hope it don't come to nothing like that.
Yeah,
stupid no-fly zone. All right, Uwe Boll, thank you so much. I appreciate it. So this can't get right.
Bye.
All right, buddy. Well, do I got to do ads now, Mike?
Yeah, you got a couple ads if you want.
All right, cool. Thanks, man. Hey, did Brian? Yeah. What? Oh, sorry. It cut out. Did the guy that contacted you, Brian? Did he talk to you directly, or did he talk to like a publicist?
On Facebook. He
okay.
Booker or whatever, and did the contact, right? So yeah.
Oh, just asking. He just started doing that for me, and I was like, just curious, like, because like it was pretty easy to talk to you and get a thing. Some people he'll get back to me is like, well, they're publicists. I'm like, my podcast ain't that big where you're gonna go to somebody's agent and they give a shit about being on my podcast. Like,
I was never like this. It's also like I did most of the stuff on my own my whole life. So it's
yeah, right. All right, thanks, man.
Okay, bye. Bye.
Because I can't get right. Because I can't get right.